Part 3. Clothing. When it comes to clothing, you may find that you aren't getting enough information about your unique spending patterns by simply having one category called clothing. You may need to distinguish between utility and fashion, the desire never to appear in the office in the same outfit twice in a row, for example, or one-upmanship in elegant attire at social gatherings. In other words, be specific, make appropriate distinctions. To get an accurate map of your spending patterns, you may need several subcategories. There is the clothing you wear in your everyday home life, the clothing you believe is appropriate attire for the workplace, and whatever specialized apparel you think you need for recreational activities. One doctor, who followed this program to get a handle on how a consistently unaccounted for 20% of his income disappeared, discovered that he had a real penchant for buying shoes. He had golf shoes, tennis shoes, running shoes, boating shoes, walking shoes, hiking shoes, and climbing shoes, as well as cross-country ski shoes, downhill ski boots, and afterski boots. Just having a category for shoes helped him find some of that missing income and face the fact that he rarely wore anything but comfortable around the house. He wasn't alone in his shoe fetish. As of 2015, the U.S. footwear industry exceeded $64 billion in sales. A nationwide survey of American women conducted that same year by Consumer Reports National Research Center revealed that the average woman owns 19 pairs of shoes, only 4 of which she wears regularly. This isn't just accounting, this is a process of self-discovery. It may even be the only process of self-discovery that promises to leave you in better shape financially than when you embarked on it. You may also choose categories that reflect your feelings, not your occasions. Clothes to cheer you up, clothes to impress a boss or a date, clothes to fit in. They say clothes make the man know. Woman, so it's good to see who you are trying to be by what clothes you buy, and what that ambition is costing you. Transportation. By using appropriate subcategories for transportation, you may gain insights that save you many hundreds of dollars a year. If you own a car, doing your tallies is a great opportunity to reflect on why you own one at all instead of relying on public transportation. Convenience, status, necessity, fitting in, a sense of freedom. Could you make up for the lack of a car with ride-sharing and short-term rentals, or the many car-sharing options now available thanks to hailing services through your phone? In some cities, you can rent your car via a sharing app and your RV. What percentage of your transportation costs come from wrong location? Location. Many people fail to think about walkability. They buy or rent homes in areas with no public transit options or bike paths. A farmer in Kansas might not be able to survive without a truck, but if you moved from the burbs to a few blocks from work, school, and shopping, your transportation expenses might zero out. It is also a good time to review your auto insurance. What portion of your insurance is necessary, and how much is habit, convention, and buying into your agent's scare tactics? While you're at it, look at anything else. Overinsured, from your home to antiques. And what category would your second car go under? Transportation, hobby, or ostentation? If you don't have a car, are you overspending on pricey cab fares when you could be using public transit or other options? Your technology. Staying informed and connected is a crucial part of modern-day society. An growing expense over the past decade has been the cost of accessing and sending data. Cell phones, internet, cable access, tablets, and smartwatches are rapidly becoming a substantial spending category. If you just have a category called phone, you may miss numerous options for saving. Many people give up their landlines once they see how much staying connected costs, or they change their cell service to one that doesn't have a 2-year contract in by their phones. Through Craigslist, with categories called landline, cell phone, and equipment, you can see your patterns more clearly. Think also about what technology you need for work versus leisure or personal development. Entertainment. Going to the movies used to be the only way to consume this type of entertainment, but now the movies come to us through home entertainment. Systems, phones, tablets, computers, and more. It could be revelatory to have an entertainment category in which you break out streaming services as one item. Or, even more specific, your multiple subscriptions. Do you need them all? What about streaming services for music? And your home entertainment center? Is that a site of consumption with upgrading your tech and then having to upgrade your furniture to house your tech and then having to repaint your family room? And do you go clubbing? Do you rent entertainers for your kids? Parties and adult parties as well. If you have children, what portion of the e-services and gadgets you buy them are under entertainment? Or maybe they fit under babysitting. Should you have a category called children, which might lead you to find less expensive ways to distract them as well as introduce them to the old kind of fun, like going outdoors, refining your categories. What makes this sort of ruthless honesty bearable is that you can confront your little sins and indiscretions in the privacy of your own account book, rather than when you get caught. So don't skimp on being truthful if you find yourself face to face with some of your faults and frailties while innocently doing your monthly tabulation. What better way to face the music if you remember that doing this exercise will lead not to the punishment of a budget but rather to the freedom of self-acceptance. You will press on regardless. For example, into what category do you put the part of the food money that you use? Example, into what category do you put the part of the food money that you use to play the slots or buy lottery tickets? Yet another moment of truth may come as you vacillate over where to record liquor. Is it food? Is it entertainment? Or is it a drug? It is also important to distinguish between gibrillated expenses and other expenses. For example, under transportation, you would list separately the cost of commuting and other non-reimbursed work-related transportation expenses. If the same vehicle is used for both commuting and pleasure, then split costs according to mileage in each category. Similarly, if you use your cell phone for work-related as well as personal calls, those costs should be listed separately. Within your medical category, you may find several subcategories: sickness, wellness, i.e., what you purchase to keep yourself vital and alive, like vitamins, membership in a health club, annual checkup, health insurance, even though, really, let's be honest, healthcare is what you do for yourself. Access to the medical system is sickness care, prescription drugs, non-prescription drugs, and so on. You can see why this process has allowed people to transform more than just their relationship with money. A further refinement will come as you decide how you want to account for large, unusual expenses like annual insurance premiums, capital expenses like a new refrigerator, the money you put into IRAs, or a balloon payment on your house. As far as we are concerned, there is no right way to do this. For us, after a year of hearing ourselves make the same excuse every month about all the extraordinary expenses, this was an unusual month because the X, Y, or Z thingamabob had to be paid. We realized that every month is an unusual month and that these extraordinary expenses are a continuing part of life. you may perfect your categories over time. The exercise should be easy and a lot of fun. It will draw on a blend of honesty and creativity, stimulate your imagination, and challenge your morality all at the same time. It's better than most video games, TV shows, and board games all rolled into one. Over time, as you do this step, not only will you refine your categories, you'll find each one settles into a predictable range. You will get clarity about your spending patterns and have an internally generated, rather than externally imposed picture that is unique, deeply satisfying, and fluid as you grow and change, and learn a far cry from the old budget book categories. Remember, you are also recording all the money that flows into your life. You may want to establish subcategories for income also. It is important to distinguish between wages, salaries, tips, and interest, dividend income, your primary income versus your side hustle. Where will you record the dimes you find on the sidewalk, the quarters you retrieve from vending machines, and your gambling winnings? If you are an independent contractor, yard sales, and antiques, you will also have a growing category called investment income. More on that later. You may also have unusual income months, like when you get an advance for writing a book or finally receive the $70,000 from Uncle Harry's estate. These income categories are not as revelatory as your spending ones. You already have the wake-up tool to analyze each income stream, your real hourly wage. After you have examined the month's itemized entries from your tracking tool and created categories that accurately depict your spending patterns, devise a way to record expenses under each category in a way that works for you. We'll give you an idea of how such a tabulation might be set up. You will notice that there are a few blank columns. We will talk later about what these columns are for, but for now, just include them. Totaling it all up. A word of warning. Yes, there are a variety of computer programs and apps that can be useful here, but the meat of this step is categorizing your expenses. And even the best software can't distinguish how to categorize golf. Is it recreation or is it a job-related expense? Because the golf course is where you transact your business. Make sure you aren't assuming you just can't do this step because you don't have the right program. Many do-it-yourselfers enjoy crafting a personalized spreadsheet complete with automatic calculations and color-coded cells. We've met others who simply jot down cryptic codes on a note card in their purse. Others may use monthly bank statement charts and graphs as a starting point for their own financial journal, while some online platforms allow you to link bank and credit card accounts for a one-stop summary. It's important you take the time to filter common transactions. These tools are incredibly useful, but the key is finding a system that works for you. Both of the authors did it the old-fashioned way, with paper and pencil and adding up columns of figures by hand. Yes, these steps worked brilliantly even before calculators. Whether by hand or machine, here's the simple process. At the end of the month, you will transfer each entry from your tracking system into the appropriate column on your monthly tabulation. Add up your income columns to get your total monthly income. Add up the expenditures in each column and enter the total of each subcategory at the bottom of that column. Then add the totals for all expenditure categories. This sum is your total monthly expenses. The balancing act. Next, count the cash in your wallet and piggy bank and note the balance of your checking and savings accounts. Now you have enough information to see how closely you have kept track of the money flowing into and out of your life. Over the past month, if you have kept accurate records and haven't physically lost any money, the money you actually have at the end of the month in cash and bank accounts will be equal to the money you had at the beginning of the month plus your total monthly income minus your total monthly expenses. If you haven't kept accurate records or have physically lost some money, you will have lost or gained cash that you can't account for. The difference between your total monthly income and total monthly expenses, plus or minus your monthly error, is the money you have saved this month. When your monthly error is consistently zero, you will know you have mastered step to keeping track of every penny. Congratulations, you have achieved a minor miracle. Shows a sample set of monthly figures, but please use it only as a model. The fun and empowerment come from creating a balancing system that works for your particular situation. Making money real. Now comes one of the magic keys to this program. What you have in front of you, as accurate and balanced as it may be, does not yet have the power to transform your relationship with money. It is simply the byproduct of a month of successfully tracking little pieces of paper and bits of metal. You may have had emotional reactions to this accounting, but they will be forgotten as soon as you embark on your next trip to the Gazingas pin store. The fact that you may spend, let's say, 80 pieces of paper dollars on magazines a month does not have any direct relevance to your experience of life. However, remembering that money is something you trade your life energy for, you can now translate that $80 into something that is real for you, your life energy. Use the following formula. Money spent on magazines, real hourly wage, equals hours of life energy. In Chapter 2, we did a sample calculation that showed how a theoretical $25 an hour salary could end up being, in reality, $10 an hour. Obviously, your real hourly wage will end up being a different figure, but for the sake of this example, let's use $10 an hour. So, in the case of this magazine habit, you can divide that $80 by your real hourly wage, $10, and find out that you spent 8 hours of your life for this particular pleasure. $80, $10 equals 8 hours of life energy. Now you can measure your growing pile of all the wonderful yet unread magazines on your bedside table against something really unredeemable. Hours on your one-way journey from cradle to grave. That's a whole day of work. Those magazines drain your energy 3 times over. Once in earning the money to buy them, again in staying up late to read them, and finally in feeling guilty when you haven't finished them by the time the next issue arrives, to say nothing of having to store or dispose of them. Could those 8 hours have been better spent? How about taking Friday off? Is it still true that you have no time to spend with your family? What does this do to habitual procrastination? You've been wanting to catch up on your sleep. Did you just find a way to do that? Or were those magazines worth every hour spent to acquire them? Did they give you 8 hours of pleasure or valuable education, and then some? Don't answer these questions yet. Just notice that translating dollars into hours of your life reveals the real trade-offs you are making for your style of living. We'll analyze these findings further. Let's look at another example. Your rent or mortgage payment. Let's say you pay $1,500 a month for the privilege of living in your house or apartment. Applying the awareness that your real hourly wage is $10, divide that $1,500 by $10. Here's the reality. It costs you 150 hours a month to put this particular roof over your head. If you're putting in the standard 40 hours a week, you'll soon realize that your housing costs eat up almost every hour you put in on your job. Every working hour is going to pay for a house that you get to enjoy perhaps 2 or 3 hours a day. Is it worth it? Sure, you can shave off some hours too. Account for your mortgage deduction or the benefit of your mother-in-law rental. But excuses like "I live in an expensive city" let you off the hook to easily be grateful for the starkness of this awareness. It will do wonders for your personal bottom line. No shame, no blame, but no wheedling and whining either. Now take the total of each row of your monthly tabulation and convert the dollars spent in each subcategory into hours of life energy spent. You may round off to the nearest half hour. Your monthly tabulation form will now have the total hours of life energy column, as seen in Some Pictures Are Worth 1,000 Words. Let's look at real-life examples of how some fears put this step to work for themselves. Take a look at how Rosemary I set up her categories in Don't. You feel as if you know a little about her unique personality just from looking at her tabulation for January. She obviously puts a high value on beauty, since she has two categories that refer to it, beauty and aesthetics. She obviously takes care of her body and is willing to spend money on maintaining her health. It is telling that she has wellness categories like health products and health services, rather than sickness categories like drugs and doctors. The donations category says that she contributes to causes enough to have a separate category. The monthly ritual of filling in the numbers has the quality of an exciting game. How did she do in each category? Is it up or down from last month? How does it compare to last year's average for the same category? Are trends up or down? Now let's look at how one couple has gone about creating categories and a monthly tabulation form for tracking them. Maddie and Tom C. live in rural Maine. Professionally, they are quite different. He drives a truck and she's an accountant. Personally, though, they bet buddies and are enjoying the awareness and communication that come from combining their incomes and expenses. When they computed their real hourly wage, they combined their totals to come out with a single figure. For the two of them, $10.23 an hour. As you can see in Maddie's total adjusted hours was 77.5 and Tom's was 67.5, or 145 hours combined. Maddie's total income was $1,080.31 and Tom's was $402.50, making a grand total of $1,482.81. Dividing combined income by combined hours is how they establish that figure of $10.23 per hour. Dividing 60 minutes by that real hourly wage tells us that every dollar spent represented nearly 6 minutes of life energy. Combining their income and expenses works for Maddie and Tom. Other couples have found that separating their income and expenses was the only way to get an accurate reflection of their unique patterns. You'd think that because Mary and Don M. shared the same passion, music, and the same profession, computer programming, it would be natural for them to track their income and expenses together. But while they were outwardly a matched pair, their personalities and styles were at opposite ends of the spectrum. Don was near the rational, conservative, and deliberate end. Mary was more toward the emotional, experimental, and disorganized end. Their Kazingas pins were different. Their shopping habits were different. Their hobbies, besides music, were different. Doing their monthly tabulations together wasn't giving either one of them much good information. Not only that, but soon after starting on the program, Mary left her programming job and started teaching piano full-time out of their home. Her hours and pay became irregular, so they decided that she would offset her smaller contribution to the household kitty by doing the housekeeping chores. This non-monetary arrangement didn't show up to their satisfaction in the monthly the more they struggled to make it work, the more tension arose. In order to maintain a friendly marriage and stay on the program, they decided to separate their finances. To Don, it was sensible. To Barry, it was threatening, but she agreed to give it a try. To her amazement, Mary found that having her own accounts gave her a wonderful feeling of autonomy. She discovered that she'd become dependent in many subtle ways during the years of her marriage, and she reconnected with the strength and felt independence she'd felt when she was single. Let's look now at how another fear did her end-of-the-month balance sheet. Elaine H., from Chapter 1, applied her computer programmer's logical mind to the task of setting up a balance sheet for herself. Her monthly tabulation. Categories are enough like Rosemary's that we don't need to reproduce them. But her balance sheet has a precision and elegance that are instructive. Setting up this form for herself made the end of the month balancing process easy and accurate. Her capital is the combination of what she has in savings, a money market account, and bonds. This is all money that is earning interest, which she likes to keep separate from the money in her checking account. During the month of August, her net worth increased by nearly $6,000, and she mistracked $15.40. The point of these stories is not to provide you with a standard to follow, but to inspire you to create a monthly tabulation form that works for you. Remember, this is not a budget book or a spending plan. This is not trying to fit your square or octagonal peg into society's round hole. Creating your form will be a process of self-discovery. You aren't learning the right way, you are creating your own way. There is no right way to do it other than to do it. This step is crucial to the whole rest of the program, which is why those people who proudly report that they are on the program but are guesstimating rather than tracking are off base. This step provides insight and empowerment, and will be worth every minute you invest in setting it up to work for you. Summary of Step 3. 1. Discern your unique spending and income categories and subcategories from your month of tracking income and expenses. 2. Set up your monthly tabulation. 3. Enter all money transactions in the appropriate category. 4. Total your money spent in each subcategory. 5. Add up total monthly income and total monthly expenses. Total your cash on hand and balance all bank accounts. Apply equation total monthly income minus total monthly expenses plus or minus monthly error. The money you actually have at the end of the month should equal what you had at the beginning, plus your monthly income minus your monthly expenses. 6. Convert the dollars spent in each subcategory into hours of life energy, using the real hourly wage that you computed in Step 2. Money talk, questions, 2, 3, 4, or more minds are better than one. Sometimes seeing how others do the steps helps, and just the tangible work will raise so many interesting questions. Using the suggestions in the epilogue for how to have a money talk, raise the following questions in your daily reflections with your partner or in social groups. Remember, adding why to the end of any question will take it deeper. Adding how has society shaped my answer to any question will take it wider. There are no right answers. How do you stay conscious with your money? What do you insure and why? What question would you most like to ask a friend about money? An expert? A relative? How do you feel when you spend money? What are some of your best experiences with tipping, tithing, or giving? What are your top priorities, and how does your spending support them more? Not. 4. How much is enough? The quest for happiness. What makes you come alive? What will you do with this life you have been given? Ashley Brilliant, the master of the under 17 word quip, once drew a cartoon of a forlorn boy saying, "I don't know how to be happy." They didn't teach it in school. If the pursuit of happiness is our birthright, written into the Declaration of Independence, and yet our aptitude for happiness was all but squeezed out of us in school, we need to look now at what fills us with happiness or fulfillment. Fulfillment is our compass and our rudder for transforming our relationship with money. Whether in the sense of accomplishing a goal or letting go into a moment of real contentment, fulfillment is that experience of deep satisfaction when you can say, "Ah, that was a delicious meal, a job well done, a purchase worth the money." You have an aspiration or an expectation, and you recognize and celebrate that the very thing you wanted has arrived. To find such fulfillment and be mindful of it, then you need to know what you are looking for. It's fairly easy to know what fulfillment is in terms of food or other temporary pleasures, but to have fulfillment in the larger sense, to have a fulfilled life, you need to have a sense of purpose, a dream of what a good life might be. For many of us, however, growing up has meant outgrowing our dreams or having them shrink in the face of harsh circumstances or people. Debt, for many, has been the great dream destroyer. Acquired to fund a dream of an education or a home or a wedding, and then standing by the door of every future dream, arms crossed, saying, "Pay up, or you can't go further." Some of us just accept debt as a part of adult life and trod on, shackled by consequences we don't fully understand. Whether to the debt collectors, your bills, hard luck, poor choices, or your own insecurities, if you have sacrificed your dreams on the altar of the almighty dollar, you need to reclaim them as they are the fuel for this journey. Did you dream of writing a great book, but now write marketing copy for money? That book is still there. Did you dream of being a healer, but now work for an HMO with back-to-back 15-minute appointments? That dream of selfless service is still in there. It might take radical change to reclaim it, but it's not gone. Were you inspired by your faith to inspire others in their search for God, but now spend most of your time in congregation politics and fundraising? That dream is not gone, just deferred. Between the life you dreamed of and the life you have, what happened, and has it diminished your courage to dream big again? Has the constant buzz of daily tasks slowly narrowed your vision to the plodding steps ahead? Have you been told, "Don't worry, those dreams will go away in time," as if dreams themselves are childish affairs? Do we really just need to grow up? We cannot let our lives be dreams deferred, as Langston Hughes wrote in his famous poem, Harlem. It's time to let your dreams speak even as you still have to put food on the table and pay off debts. Dreaming once again does not mean absolving ourselves of financial responsibilities. It means reviving our dreams as juice for the journey. Wherever you are, take a few moments now to reflect upon your dreams. Can you remember what you wanted before you were told to grow up and fit your round peg in a square cubicle? Use these questions to trigger memories and stimulate thoughts. What did you want to be when you grew up? What have you always wanted to do that you haven't yet done? What have you done in your life that you are really proud of? If you knew you were going to die within a year, how would you spend that year? What brings you the most fulfillment, and how is that related to money? If you didn't have to work for a living, what would you do with your time? These are potent questions. You may have looked at some before, but without a bridge between your present reality and your aspirations. This program is your bridge, so no dream is too large. Take your time, use your journal, dig, keep asking the same question until you run out of answers, Before going on to the next one, talk to your friends. Invite them to dig with you. Revisit your answers frequently to see what has changed. A few years after graduating from college, Grant Sabatier had his wake-up call when he discovered he hadn't enough money to buy a burrito. He was living with his parents, a classic failure to launch millennial. Stock market, investment, lifestyle changes, and daily saving goals. He hit his goal, took another screenshot when his total assets passed $1 million, and then realized his dreams were actually far bigger than $1 million. As motivating as that number had been, as a graduate in philosophy from the University of Chicago, he knows that life is about asking big questions. What is empathy, fulfillment, happiness, peace? He sees his fee as a chance to think, write, and speak about these fundamental questions and go where his answers take him. Amy and Jim D., inspirations for an earlier generation's shift to thrift. Through their financial magazine, the Tightwad Gazette, had a simple dream. They wanted to raise a family in a big farmhouse in a rural area. When they got married, they had, between the two of them, logged more than 20 years in the workaday world. Jim as a career Navy man and Amy as a graphic artist. Yet, they had only $1,500 in savings to show for it. They recognized that they valued family and community above the fast lane of life in which they had both been living, and they decided to raise their children and realize their dream on only one income, Jim's salary from the Navy. To realize their dream, they called upon all the frugality training they'd gotten from their thrifty parents and devised scads of new strategies for saving money. Neither had any sense of deprivation. They thrived on this challenge. To their creativity and their relationship thrived on their shared purpose. In 7 years they had 4 children and saved enough to make a down payment on a rural farmhouse in Maine, pay off all debts, and buy a new car, furniture, and appliances. 2 years after that, Amy decided to put her graphic skills to work and create a forum where frugal ideas could be exchanged. In June 1990, she published the premiere issue of the Tightwad Gazette, an 8-page newsletter full of practical tips about living the good life on a shoestring. A year later, they had twins and were still able to live within their means. Their story is testimony to the fact that common dreams, like having a house in the country and staying home to raise a family, are truly within reach. Wesell's passion is nature, both being in it and preserving it. For him, the FEE program is a way to do what he's always wanted to do: contribute to humanity's understanding of and respect for the natural world full-time. He's aligning as many parts of his life as possible with this dream. His paid employment is as a chemist measuring air quality. He's moved within walking distance of work so he won't contribute as much to the air pollution he's measuring. On vacations, he kayaks through unspoiled wilderness areas, and on weekends he teaches kayaking to help others experience nature safely and respectfully. And with his disposable income, he builds up his savings and supports major conservation organizations. The compass of his life is the natural world, and every aspect of his life points in that direction. Kathy and Langdon L. had dreams not just for themselves, but for making the world a better place, as corny as they knew that sounded. Langdon was a physician and the medical director of a migrant worker clinic. Kathy was a former teacher active in the programs of a number of non-profit organizations, who also held down the fort for her family. They loved their lives, but looked forward to an empty nest so that they too could fly the coop. The financial program gave them a way to retire from their paid employment at the same time they retired from being full-time parents. They moved to a small town and bought land that became the heart of an eco-village, an intentional community committed to sustainability on every level possible. At first it was a village of two, but over time others joined in, building their own small and unique houses and building a rich communal life together. At one point, the outgoing, energetic Langdon became the mayor of the town, while Kathy was drawn to her painting studio. What dreams are calling you? Step 4 of this financial program is your chance to make your dreams come true by aligning your earning and spending with your values, aspirations, purpose, and happiness. It will turn making a dying into making a living. Step 4. 3 questions that will transform your life. In this step, you evaluate your spending by asking 3 questions about the total money spent in each of your subcategories. 1. Did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to life? Energy spent. 2. Is this expenditure of life energy in alignment with my values and life purpose? 3. How might this expenditure change if I didn't have to work for money? Each of these questions points to a facet of your dreams. The first asks if your spending is bringing you the kind of happiness you feel when you are living your dream. The second asks if this spending is taking you in the direction of your dream. The third asks you to imagine how this spending would change if you no longer had to make money to support your lifestyle. To do this step, go back to your monthly tabulation form, see figure 3.2.1, and notice the 3 blank columns you should have included next to your expenses. This is where you will write the answers to our 3 questions. You have already converted dollars to hours of life energy. Now you can take a look at how you want to spend that precious commodity. These 3 questions, applied to each spending subcategory on your monthly tabulation, will give you a basis for evaluating the way you spend your money. Question 1. Did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to life energy spent? This question provides a way to evaluate your expenditures. Take a look at each subcategory with this question in mind. If you receive so much fulfillment from this expenditure of life energy that you'd even like to increase spending in this subcategory, place a plus or an up arrow in the first box. If you received little or no fulfillment from it, put a or a down arrow in that box. If the expense feels okay just as it is, mark the box with a 0. This simple exercise will show you where your spending is so automatic, or even addictive, that your life energy flows in that direction, while fulfillment lies in the opposite. You might even find your shopping weaknesses, your gazingas pins. At first you might angrily defend one or another of your gazingas pin habits. I like having lots of shoes. Every pair has a function. Anyway, it's my money. I like books, and so what if I stop at the bookstore every day on the way home? And so what if I don't read them? Someday I'm sure I will. I like quilting, and so what if I collect fabric for my quilting projects, even if I'm not making a quilt now? Okay, I haven't made one in a decade, but you can never have enough variety of fabric. So what if I have? And on we defend our gazingas pin buying habit, but no one is trying to take your gazingas pins away from you. In fact, no one is even listening, since the honesty required by this exercise emerges most readily in solitude. Over time, seeing the number of hours of your life you spent in order to reward yourself with yet another gazingas pin might make it less of a treasure and more of a booby prize. On the other hand, you might find you've been too much of a penny pincher in categories in which you get a lot of fulfillment. Make sure you note these areas of supreme satisfaction and put your plus or up arrow in the columns in which you are actually underspending. Martha and Ted P. discovered that this question provided a gentle way to evaluate each other's spending patterns without getting defensive or adversarial. Rather than directly challenging one of Ted's purchases, Martha can just calmly ask whether he really got fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the amount of life energy spent. Cheap thrills and deep thrills. A grandfather with a love for simple living had tried to instill his values in his young grandson. One day the boy excitedly announced a brand new discovery. "Grandpa, I know what happiness is." "What?" the old man asked, sure he would hear a gem worth sharing. "It's that feeling you get right after you buy something." Cheap thrills are like that little feeling you get when you buy something. It's the coaching of the pinball machine. The happiness rarely lasts. It has a life of the distance from cash register to car. Deeper thrills come when you've achieved a dream bigger than your ego's aspirations. This is the true joy in life. George Bernard Shaw wrote in his preface to Man and Superman, the being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Cheap thrills come from external rewards. Deep thrills come from being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one. Cheap thrills are passing, deep thrills are lasting. Your internal yardstick for fulfillment measures deep thrills. Developing an internal yardstick for fulfillment. The primary tool for developing this internal yardstick is awareness. Answering question 1 helps you develop an internal yardstick for fulfillment and kick any unhealthy spending habits in the process. Most of us use external yardsticks for fulfillment. In fact, Ashley Brilliant, they did teach that in school. We measure our fulfillment by pleasing others, getting an A, proving ourselves to the bully from 3rd grade who still lives in our minds, beating out the competition, making it onto whatever top 10 list you worship, winning, not winning but getting a trophy anyway, scoring big in romance or sales records. These are external yardsticks for fulfillment. You look elsewhere to see how you are doing. The gleam in your mother's or partner's eye, the tally of votes, bestseller lists, enough the deepest thrill. The affluence that surrounds us has been called the American dream, and, with good reason, we've been asleep. We wake up by questioning the dream, asking yourself month in, month out, whether you actually got fulfillment in proportion to life energy spent in each subcategory awakens that natural sense of knowing when enough is enough. You come to differentiate between a passing fancy and real fulfillment. Recall the fulfillment curve from that point of enoughness where desires disappear because they have been completely met. Any less would be not enough, any more would be too much. A fulfilling meal is one in which all the flavors, smells, and textures blend perfectly and your appetite is satisfied without even a trace of the discomfort of having overeaten. In the same way, a fulfilling car is one that meets your transportation needs perfectly, is pleasing enough to afford the eye that you will enjoy owning for many thousands of miles, that doesn't insult your wallet or your values, and that, with good maintenance, will be both reliable and a pleasure to drive, unless, of course, buying and driving a classic. One test of whether you're using an internal rather than external yardstick is this: the purchase or experience leaves you satisfied, content, at peace. You stop craving the very thing you just consumed because you've actually scratched the right itch in the right way. Financial integrity. Having an internal yardstick for fulfillment is actually one part of what we call financial integrity. You learn to make your financial choices independent of what advertising and industry have decided would be good for their business. You are free of the humiliation of being manipulated into spending your life energy on things that don't bring you happiness. Nina N., whose story we'll be hearing in, reported that before doing this evaluation, she felt powerless over the money in her wallet. I'd walk into a store and my money would fly out of my wallet, not literally, but that's how it felt. I couldn't stop it. It is a form of financial independence to be able to just say no to unconscious spending. By putting your up and down arrows and zeros in and month out. Perhaps just from a gut sense, perhaps from careful, conscious thought, you will build this financial muscle of stopping at enough. Question 2. Is this expenditure of life energy in alignment with my values and life purpose? This question is illuminating. It gives you a concrete way of looking at whether you're practicing what you preach. As you did with the first question, ask of each spending subcategory, was this expenditure of life energy in broad alignment with my values and my life purpose? If your answer is a strong yes, put a plus or an up arrow in the second box in that row. If it's a no, just put a down arrow. If it's fine as it is, put a 0. People like Amy and Jim D. had a clear set of values and a strong sense of purpose when they undertook their Tightwad campaign. So did Wes L. and Kathy, and Langdon L. Measuring their financial choices against question 2 helped them to align their finances with their dreams. On the other hand, many people living otherwise well-off lives are suffering from a poverty of ideals. Many heirs and heiresses are among the lost and confused, all dressed up financially and nowhere to go. And lots of ordinary people who've achieved the American dream are also wondering whether there isn't more to life than this. What about you? Are your values and life purpose clear, or are they out of focus, buried under the weight of a lifestyle that doesn't seem to fit? Part 1. What are values? Our values are those principles and qualities that matter to us. Truth is a principle, and honesty is a quality of how we live truth. Living our values gives us peace of mind. Not doing so disturbs our conscience, and if we aren't aware of what's going on, disables that inner gyroscope that orients us. Values are like an ethical DNA made up of our sense of right and wrong that structures our choices. So our values reflect our beliefs. But since how we act reflects our real motivations, our values are revealed by our behaviors. Parents sometimes try to sidestep this fact with the phrase, "Do as I say, not as I do." When we choose to provide food, shelter, and clothing for our children, we are making that choice on the basis of values, being a good parent, expressing a natural feeling of love. Whether we spend our day off walking in the park or going back to the office, our choice is based on values. But I had to go to the office. You say that's not a values decision, that's pure necessity. Yet you value the paycheck, so you choose to do the job. Or you value being responsible to your family. Or you value the good opinion of your boss. Our behavior is a concrete representation of our values. How we spend our time and money speaks volumes about who we are and what we stand for. This book deals with one of the chief social manifestations of our values, how we handle money in our lives. Looking at your monthly tabulations, what does the $250 or 25 hours of life energy at the $10 per hour we calculated in our example in spent on eating out reveal in terms of values? It could indicate any number of things. that you value convenience, that you like good food, or that you want social time with friends? What about the 12 hours donated to a charity? The 15 hours for the cell phone bill? You may find that you are comfortable with many of these expenditures, and some you may question. 25 hours of life energy spent on eating out may seem fine till you realize upon reflection that you devoted only 8 hours this month to one of your children, or that those hours spent eating out dwarf what you've spent on concerts and museums, though you claim to get your life's pleasure from the arts. For many people, the values expressed in their expenditures are not the values they really want to be living. Your totals in some of your categories may reveal that habit, peer pressure, or even boredom has gotten the best of you. Go back to the questions at the beginning of the chapter. If you didn't have to work for a living, what would you do with your time? What have you done with your life that you are really proud of? How would you spend the next year if you knew it was the last year of your life? Your answers to these questions will tell you a lot about what you truly value. Your monthly tabulations are like a mirror. As you ask the question, is this expenditure in alignment with my values? Month in and month out, you will find that you are looking ever more deeply into yourself. Simply as a result of asking and answering this question, you will make changes, large and small, that bring you closer to financial integrity, in which all aspects of your financial life are in harmony with your true values. Samuel D. had the traditional makings of a very nice life, but was angry and frustrated with the system that had led him to believe that if he had the right stuff, i.e., house, cars, job, etc., he'd feel fulfilled. He didn't, as he did his monthly evaluation, the problem became clear. He realized that his predominant desire was to contribute something toward solving some of the world's problems instead of just being one of the decent yet sleeping millions. He took a risk and a cut in pay by leaving the school system to develop a private counseling firm. Eventually, he went into partnership with an associate, holding training sessions and seminars to help people get in touch with their values and worth, and with their responsibility to themselves and the larger community. His insides now match his outside, and he's finally happy. Part 2. What is purpose? The second part of this question calls on you to evaluate your expenditures in light of your life purpose. Purpose is the overarching goal that embodies our values and our dreams. But what does that really mean? Purpose implies direction and time. You do something now to have something later that you value. It's a concerted intention to do something meaningful for both yourself and the world at large. For some people, like Amy and Jim D., purpose can be as straightforward as your goal. I am doing this in order to get that. It can be revealed in the answer you give when someone asks, why are you doing what you're doing? Your motivation. It can be the deeper meaning you ascribe to the events of your life. The real purpose of my job was to meet my wife. Life purpose, however, implies something beyond reason. It isn't simply achieving a goal or acquiring some long-fought possession. A passerby approaches the first stonecutter and asks, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" The stonecutter replies rather gruffly, "Can't you see, I'm chipping away at this big hunk of stone." Approaching the second craftsman, our curious person asks the same question. This stonecutter looks up with a mixture of pride and resignation and says, "Why, I'm earning a living to take care of my wife and children." Moving to the third worker, our questioner asks, "And what are you doing?" The third stonecutter looks up, his face shining, and says with reverence, "I'm building a cathedral." Dedication to a higher purpose. How do we find our purpose? Joanna Macy, an educator, ecologist, and author, has suggested 3 directions in which to look for your own purpose. 1. Work with your passion on projects you care deeply about. What was your dream before you stopped dreaming? What's the work you would do even if you weren't paid to do it? You're not looking for those superficial preferences depicted on bumper stickers, like "I'd rather be surfing." You're looking for something you'd give your life to, not something you use to get away from your life. 2. Work with your pain, with people whose pain touches your heart. Have you been there so you know how it feels, in grief, sorrow, despair, hunger, terror? Can you offer others the wisdom and compassion you gained from this experience? Is there an aspect of suffering in the world that calls you to action? If you are in such pain that you've lost touch with your ability to help others, then now is the perfect time to extend your hand to others in pain. It's healing. Then, in doing what you see needs to be done, taking dinner to a sick neighbor, helping a child, learn to read, writing a letter to the editor of your newspaper, being an advocate for the homeless in your city, you will discover a life filled with the experience of having a purpose worth living for. Passion, pain, what's at hand, these are doorways to finding a purpose beyond material acquisition, measuring our movement toward purpose. Take a few minutes right now to write down your purpose in life. It may have nothing to do with how you now spend your time. It may or may not seem significant to others. It may not even be very clear to you yet. Just do the best you can. Use this stated purpose to measure your actions. If over time you see your purpose changing, that's fine. Simply write what life purpose now means to you and use this new statement of purpose as your measuring stick. However you define your purpose, you'll need a way to measure your results. Some feedback to tell you if you are on track. Often we measure how we are doing and fulfilling our purpose by material success or by professional or community recognition. Another way to measure whether you are living your purpose, one that goes beyond material success, rewards, and recognition, is your answer to question 2. Is this expenditure of life energy in alignment with my values and life purpose? Asking this question faithful every month for every category will nudge you toward clarifying your values, living in alignment with your stated purpose, and further defining your true purpose in life. Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning and a survivor of the Nazi death camps, observed that there was a factor beyond intellect or psychology that allowed some people to retain their humanity in inhumane circumstances. This factor, he concluded, was meaning, the will to have. Meaning and purpose in life, he said, is superior to the will to have power or the will to find pleasure. He observed that being human means relating and being directed to something or someone other than oneself. Going through the questionnaires which is based on Frankl's profound work, will assist you in your own movement toward meaning in your life. To tally your score, add the numbers you've circled. If you are below 92, you probably lack meaning and purpose in life. If you scored 92 to 112, you are indecisive or hazy regarding your sense of purpose. And if your score is greater than 112, you have a clear purpose. How did you do? Remember that asking the question, "Is this expenditure in alignment with my purpose?" will help you connect with your sense of purpose. Your monthly tabulation maps your spending patterns onto your quest for meaning. To return to integrity alignment of your actions with your values, you can either adjust your spending or adjust your purpose. Question 3. How might this expenditure change if I didn't have to work for money? So far, we've seen how well our purchases fulfill us and align with our values. But question 3 evaluates how much your job costs you and focuses more clearly on your life apart from work. Ask yourself, which expenses would increase or disappear altogether if I didn't work for money? In the third column, next to your expense categories, mark A or down arrow if you think this expense would decrease, a plus or up arrow if it would increase, or a 0 if it would probably remain unchanged. If you can come up with an estimated dollar figure, write it in a separate line on the monthly tabulation. This question opens the possibility of a lifestyle in which you don't have to report to your job week in and week out. What would your life be like if you didn't work for money? 40 or more hours a week. What expenses might disappear? If you didn't have to work for money, would you buy more clothes? Fewer clothes? Burn more gas? Less gas? Sell your car entirely? Move to a cheaper house farther from a center of commerce? Would you have higher or lower medical bills? Insurance costs might go up, but illnesses down. Would you still take weekend getaways in hotels? Would your travel expenses go up or down? Would you no longer reward your hard work with brand new Gazingas pins? What do you now spend to simply compensate for doing a job that claims the majority of your waking hours? You don't have to know precisely what you would do if you didn't have to work for money. You don't even have to want to do anything other than your job. You just need to ask the question of each expense category. How would expenditures in this category change if I didn't have to work for a living? Remember, no shame, no blame. You aren't violating your commitment to your profession by asking that question, nor are you expressing disloyalty to your boss or dissatisfaction with your job by considering how you might spend your money if you were doing something else. If you love your job, the simple monthly exercise of asking this question will only increase your job satisfaction, because you will increase your certainty that you are there by choice. By asking question 3, you may find yourself coming to a startling conclusion. If you weren't spending most of your time making money, life could be a whole lot cheaper. Because your days are consumed by your job, you need money too. Handle every other aspect of your life, from daycare to home repair, from entertainment to being listened to with compassion. You will discover that financial independence has this independence from needing money to meet my needs component, quite the opposite of financial independence as being rich, enough to pay a multitude of minions to do everything for me. Assessing the 3 questions. Now take a look at your tabulation sheet. Find all of your marks or down arrows. Note which subcategories didn't meet your criterion for question 1. You did not receive fulfillment in proportion to the amount of life energy spent. You did not receive fulfillment in proportion to the amount of life energy spent. Which ones didn't measure up on question 2? This expenditure was not in alignment with your values and life purpose. And which ones are expenses that would change significantly if you didn't have to make a dime? Do you see any patterns? What have you learned about yourself? Don't punish yourself and don't resolve to do better next month. Remember, this is not a budget. Trust that asking and answering the 3 questions month by month, year by year will clarify and deepen your understanding of fulfillment and purpose. The steps of this program work synergistically, building upon and enhancing one another. So, just relax and do the steps, all of them, with integrity. And remember, no shame, no blame. This is simply an information gathering process. It is the first step toward reprogramming yourself. Any unconscious, addictive patterns of spending will be exposed and identified when you bring them into the light of honest evaluation and clear numeric expression. The point is not to drive yourself to change through guilt or self-criticism. The point is to adjust your spending until you have zeros or pluses for all your categories. Here are a few reminders about working with step 4 to maximize your benefits. Getting to enough. We talked about the fulfillment curve and that interesting place at its peak called enough. You have enough for your survival, enough for your comforts, and even some special luxuries with no excess to burden you unnecessarily. Enough is a powerful and free place. Our own experience is that enough has 4 components, 4 common qualities. 1. Accountability, knowing how much money is flowing into and out of your life's basic financial intelligence. Clearly, if you never know how much you have or where it's all going, you can never have enough. 2. An internal yardstick for fulfillment. As we pointed out earlier, you can never have enough if you are measuring by what others have or think. It's like trying to go up a down escalator. Other people's opinions are fickle. Other people's stuff is ever-changing. And just when you have the stuff you think achieves that coveted parity with the Joneses, along comes the craze of tidying up, and the Joneses are now minimalists. Self-awareness is key. 3. A purpose in life higher than satisfying your own wants and desires. Because you can never have enough if every desire becomes a need that must be filled. What is a purpose higher than getting what we want? The opposite of getting is giving, and therein lies a secret to fulfillment. Beyond the point of enough, we achieve happiness by expressing our natural desire to offer our gifts and talents to others. 4. Responsibility, living for more than just me, myself, and I. If we don't give a hoot about anyone but ourselves, we can never have enough until we have it all. Responsibility, then, is good for you. It gets you off the more is better treadmill as well as being good for others. Break down responsibility and you get response and ability. You go from blindness to the ripples of your actions, to being able and willing to respond to the needs of others. The first place to take responsibility is for yourself. You stop the blame game, tell the truth, and align your actions with your professed values. You define enough for you. Ultimately, you live your life in widening circles. As Albert Einstein said in 1950, a human being is part of a whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Buckminster Fuller, another 20th century dreamer of possible worlds, had a similar insight. Some hold him as a near saint of sustainability, yet in his 20s, after the death of his son and a business failure, he felt worthless and considered ending it all. In that moment of extreme pain, he had an epiphany. It, as in his life, did not belong to him. It belonged to the world. He dedicated the rest of his life to seeking ways to optimize life for everyone. His game became make the world work for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time. through spontaneous cooperation, without ecological offense or the disadvantage of anyone. Eventually hundreds of thousands of people joined him in this quest, taking on as a personal goal a world that works for everyone with nothing and no one left out. Imagine that there is enough, as Fuller believed, for everyone: enough food, enough energy, enough resources. Imagine, as Einstein told us, that we could widen our circles of compassion to embrace all living creatures. No two creatures enough bundles have to match, but everyone's sense of enough has to be fulfilled. What an exquisite design problem to solve. What a great dream this could be for all of us who discover our personal enough through doing these simple steps consistently over time, and then dedicate our liberated life energy to service. If this speaks to you, craft a fourth question for your evaluation along these lines. What would expenditures in this category look like in a just and compassionate world where everyone had everything they needed for a life they loved, now and in the future? Rephrase that however you like. A brief reformulation would be: what if everybody did this? Just as the fulfillment and alignment questions guide your choices to make life better for you and the people you love, this question guides your choices with Einstein's wider circles of compassion in mind. You'll never know everybody, but you can imagine them in a do unto others as you would have others do unto you way. Looking at your tallies, you could ask, what if everybody ate at restaurants, bought used clothes, planted fruit trees in the yard, bought this vacation package, picked this car for their daily commute? Remember, no shame, no blame, just widening those circles of compassion. Some people focus on the environment for this responsibility question. Is this good for the planet, the climate, the environment? These particular ways of phrasing the responsibility question may not square with your understanding of life and the future, but you can craft it differently. What would Jesus do is used by many Christians to make ethical decisions. What does the scientific consensus say? Could work for people who are not religious. Some might find answers in silence or in nature. You could call this the financial interdependence question. Is this fourth question necessary for transforming your relationship with money? No. However, following the steps of this program, doing your tracking and monthly tabulation, and asking yourself the three questions will become so simple, so second nature. You might find yourself wondering what would happen if everyone did it. If so, you are right where Joe and I arrived in 1990 that lead us to writing this book. Summary of Step 4. 1. Of each spending subcategory in your monthly tabulation, ask question 1. Did I receive fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to life energy spent? Mark your answer with a plus or an up arrow, A, or a down arrow, or a 0. 2. Of each spending subcategory in your monthly tabulation, ask question 2. Is this expenditure of life energy in alignment with my values and life purpose? Mark your answer with a plus or an up arrow, A, or a down arrow, or a 0. 3. Of each spending subcategory in your monthly tabulation, ask question 3. How might this expenditure change if I didn't have to work for money? Mark your answer with a plus or an up arrow, A, or a down arrow, or a 0, and write the estimated change on the monthly tabulation. 4. Review and make a list of all categories with the symbol or down arrow. Money talk questions. Your dreams, values, memories, and stories make for endlessly interesting conversations. If you hear a dream or goal you like from someone else, steal it. Together, we can build compelling visions for a really good life. Using the suggestions in the epilogue for how to have a money talk, raise these questions in your daily reflections with your partner or in social groups. Remember, adding why to the end of any question will take it deeper. Adding, how has society shaped my answer to any question will take it wider. There are no right answers. What did you want to be when you grew up? What about now? What's on your bucket list? Those things you want to do before you die. What is your calling? The work of your heart and soul. Talk about one of your happiest memories. What made you happy? What could happen out of the blue that would be like a dream come true? What do you want for your children, loved ones that money can buy?